Hey guys, Chris from Provo Beast Audio Installation, and in today's video we're replacing our factory radio with an aftermarket doubled-in touchscreen unit. Now in this install we're going to show you how to remove the factory radio. We'll head over to the bench, show you the parts that we're going to need for the install, including the dash kit, wiring harness, and radio itself. Then we'll come back here to get everything reinstalled. Let's get started. Alright, so as we get started here today, this install actually applies to most trims of the Civic except for the LX from 2016 through 2021. Both retains the factory amplifier or not, depending on what features are equipped in your vehicle. Now, as we jump into things, we got to get this radio on out. It's actually really straightforward. So there's going to be these side pieces that do need to come off. What that's going to do is expose the heating and air controls. Those come out of the way, exposing the screws for the radio itself. Okay, so there's going to be clip, 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 clip. 4 clips there with lots of tabs. Once you do that, we can unsnap the heating and air controls. Just like that. We're going to disconnect those. Just like so. And then finally, it's going to expose 2 Phillips screws holding in the silver bracket, which is holding in the radio. Give it a tug, it should unsnap. Okay, and you're going to have a ton of harnesses on your radio, so just take your time to start trying to get everything unplugged. Alright, so we've disconnected all these harnesses. Most harnesses here have a little tab you press in, and then it should release the harness from the housing. With all these now disconnected, at this point in time, grabbing both our heating and air controls and our factory radio, let's head over to the bench to show you the parts that we're going to need for our install. Alright, so we're here at the bench. Now, first and foremost, the parts that we're using for install is the radio. The customer wants us to put them. It's this Pioneer MVH AV251BT. This unit features both Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It's Maestro ready. Now, to accommodate this unit in the factory location, we need a very specific dash kit for this Civic. This is the Metra 997821B. Again, this fits all Honda Civic models from 2016 through 2021, excluding the LX trim. In this kit actually comes with a ton of stuff. Comes with the dash kit and integrated heating and air control panel, because previously those heating and air controls displayed on the factory OEM screen. Because we're removing that, Metra has devised a way to actually display those heating and air controls on this smaller screen here. This is also a way to get into settings previously displayed by the radio through this screen specifically. This kit also comes with USB retention cable, antenna adapter extension harness, backup camera harness, your main harness adapter itself, main brain module here, and a ton of instruction information. Now, as you go through this, super important that you go through this step by step here. Talks about dash disassembly, kit preparation. Once you assemble everything, how to wire everything, where everything goes, especially on this page. You can wire everything function for function. Talks about steering wheel volume controls, how to get to the antenna connection here, installation programming, how to access all the settings. Everything's in this manual. Be sure to review it. What we're going to do is grab our harness that was included with our Pioneer radio. We'll grab our harness adapter, and per the instructions, today we're going to be soldering up our connections. We're going to attach this to our main harness adapter here and start the preparation to get it reinstalled in the factory location. Alright, so looking at our harness adapter as we are preparing to wire in our chosen radio's harness into the adapter itself. For the most part, it's going to be color for color, but like I said before, always double check the function of the wire before you automatically assume colors match. Now, what we're going to do is look at each one of these, and you'll have the non-amplified and amplified side here. Looking at our harness adapter, if you have the factory amplifier, which is generally indicated if you have the factory sub that's located in the center of the rear deck between the two rear speakers, you're going to have the factory amplifier. And these plugs here, instead of cutting them off like we usually do, will plug into the pre-outs on the back of the radio. The RCA output, so front left, front right, rear left, and rear right. You plug those into the pre-outs. That's going to feed the factory amplifier the audio it needs, and then in turn it amplifies that signal for all your speakers in the vehicle. If you do not have the factory amplifier, and generally again indicated if there's no factory sub in the back rear deck, what we're going to do in like our case here today, we're going to cut these off and strip these ends back and treat them just like speaker level inputs. And what we'll do is match basically color for color there. So let's go ahead and prepare those connections. Today we're going to be soldering up our harness. If you don't know how to solder, we suggest either using crimp caps or butt connectors, and we can link those in the description as needed. So we went ahead and soldered up our connections here, just color for the most part. Again, using our instructions just to ensure that the function of the wire matches the function of the harness. Now, as we went through, we got everything prepared there. We also hooked up our backup camera wire because we have lane watch, or in other words, we have a camera mounted on the passenger side mirror, rear mirror. We need to hook up our green purple to our backup camera input on our radio harness. If you don't have that camera, if you don't have lane watch, you simply hook up your backup camera trigger wire of your radio to the same colored wire in your main harness, but this one's labeled TBA. So no lane watch, use this wire. If you have lane watch, use this wire for your backup camera. So we left an extra remote turn on output. And since we're doing an amp and sub, we're going to go ahead and leave a little pigtail off so we can add our own trigger wire later on for our own amplifier. Everything else was basically color for color with this specific Pioneer, which was great. The wires we didn't use, since we have lane watch, this green purple on the main harness we didn't use. Vehicle speed sense is blue pink. Our radio doesn't need a vehicle speed sense. It's not even pinned on the harness, so we didn't need that one. And then this other blue pink that's TBA is not used. So we cut those nice and flush. We'll insulate those. And really that completes this portion. Next here we need to move our heat shrink up and over our connections. We're going to use a heat gun to shrink the tubes. Alright, so we've completed shrinking the tubes. On the Pioneer side, we didn't use our mute wire, it's just not needed in this application. Usually we like to loom our harness in high temperature test tape, kind of like they do with the harness provided from Metra. Now, last quick things to note. If you do indeed have the factory amplifier, you are in need of one additional part. Looking at your instructions here, you also need the Metra or Axxess AXSP-HN here, and the reason is the factory amplifier uses a digital signal input, and the analog signal output from the radio won't be compatible. So if you have the factory amplifier, we'll link that additional part in the description for you. After we've now completed our wiring harness here, let's talk about the dash kit assembly. Now, looking here with the kit preparation, there's going to be some white clips included with your kit. Don't throw them away. That'll clip to the back of the dash bezel. There's 6 of them. There's also going to be 2 that'll attach to your stereo brackets. We also need to transfer over the radio trim panel airbag indicator from the heating and air controls here, and we got to move that over to the new kit as well using the 2 screws supplied. If you're doing a single DIN, you'll use the pocket. If you're doing a double DIN, no pocket is needed. You're just going to go ahead and attach those brackets to the sides of the radio. Now, for your antenna here, as mentioned before, the actual antenna module is not a part of the old OEM radio. The module is located in the rear area. So once we pull this apart, our antenna module is back there. We're going to have to use that to get all the way back and make our antenna connection. And they provide a nice long antenna extension harness that'll run all the way from that module up to the dash cavity so we can retain AM and FM. Additionally here, if you have the factory amplifier, it talks about the AXSP-HN connection and the module there and the connections needed. If you don't have that, you can disregard this portion. When you're ready to do the final assembly here, this last page basically walks you through all 11 steps with the connections needed and how to prepare and program the kit itself. Connect the 16-pin harness to port B on the back, and it identifies where B is. Connect the 22-pin harness that has the touchscreen label on it to port A on the touchscreen display. Connect the 10-pin connector from this harness into port D, which is right here. And then the factory 12-pin connector that was removed from the factory climate control panel. Locate the camera interface and connect the pin yellow RCA pin 22 plug from our harness adapter, which we wired in already. Connect the yellow RCA to the backup camera input. Disregards port E and C, so we don't need E, this grayed out one here, and we don't need C, so there are two smallest ports besides the USB update port. We don't need those, so disregard those two. Like I said, F, the USB port here, is for firmware updates. Now, if you have the factory amplifier, remember the AXSP-HN to the 14-pin harness. Connect the main harness to the vehicle. Be sure the new radio harness before programming. Plug in the new radio harness to the radio itself before you actually turn on the vehicle to program. And with all the connections made, you may push to start button to start the vehicle. So it'll immediately go into a programming cycle. So the touchscreen will power on. Wait until the aftermarket radio powers on, and then the touchscreen shows SWC configured. It may take up to 3 minutes. Then cycle the key off. Open and close the driver's side front door. Then restart the vehicle, and then everything should work properly in terms of programming. Everything else here is how to operate and set up your touchscreen display for your climate controls and settings there, not on the radio but on the secondary display. So that's basically everything we need to review here at the bench. Let's go ahead and work on our antenna adapter. So as you can see, the two ports that we don't use on our touchscreen panel, we went ahead and just put a piece of tape over so we don't get confused and connect them anyways, but we'll use these other 3 ports as indicated. Now, using the clips provided by the kit, let's go ahead and snap them on. Alright, so we got our brackets on our radio here. Now, you'll notice that our side brackets have these little tabs that hang out. You want that flush with the surface that mates to the dash kit edge. So as you can see that there's our line, and that goes right along that line there. And what that's going to do is when you mount the kit, if it's up and over, it's going to line with those tabs and it's going to sit nice and flush. Now, it does recommend that you ensure that your software is all updated through that micro USB port there on the back. If you're unsure, go ahead and plug it in. Go to Axxess's website. So at this point of time, let's hook up our antenna and get our radio installed. All right, so we've made our final connections. We loomed our harness with some high temperature Tessa tape. We'll cap these wires we didn't use off. And basically, we're getting pretty close to heading over to the guard to get everything in. Now, we have our touchscreen all prepared here with the clips on and everything. And the harness end that says touchscreen goes into there. There's 2 harnesses here. So we have the 16-pin harness here. Goes into port B, and port A is the 22-pin harness on the touchscreen end. So those will connect in there. That'll retain your heating and air controls. Next here, we're going to grab our main module and we're going to connect our 22-pin harness that goes into our main module, and then our camera harness that'll plug into that end for our backup camera. Now all these ends over here will connect to the factory OEM plugs back behind in the dash cavity. There's one that we're not using, so there is this 14-pin harness here. Since we don't have the factory amplifier, we're not using the AXSP-HN 14-pin harness plug in the module that connects into there, nor are we using the amplifier antenna plug here. So those two, we're just actually zip tied it. It's all nice and clean there. It'll hang out in the dash. That's not needed. And all these other 5 harnesses will plug into the factory OEM harnesses. This end plugs into our radio. This is our main radio harness. And it also comes with the 3.5 millimeter steering wheel control harness here. Kind of looks like an aux, but it's not. Obviously, if you're using a different branded style radio, they do also. If your radio doesn't have a 3.5 millimeter wired remote input, they do supply this adapter that converts it to like a key 1, key 2, or for Kenwoods, or for, you know, Android radios, or anything that doesn't take a steering wheel control input through this style of plug that just plugs in here. And this end goes into our camera input on the back of the radio. Alright, lastly here on the bench, we prepared our antenna adapter because, again, the antenna module is located on the passenger rear panel. We'll show you what that looks like here in a moment. And then there's going to be 2 male harnesses, or male Motorola antenna plugs on this adapter. And the one that's in the middle next to the blue wire is the one you want. The one on the outside is not pinned. So we just have that there. But the one on the middle, what we did is we connected that into our extension harness that's included with our kit. Now, since this also was pinned, this power antenna circuit, we actually grabbed some more blue wire, soldered that on, and we're going to run that all the way along with the antenna extension, all the way to the dash cavity, where we're going to connect this either into your remote wire, you could do your accessory wire, or if your radio has it, an antenna power wire, and then this will go into the antenna AM, FM, Motorola style input. Alright, so here in the car, go ahead and put your seat down, pull back your weather stripping here. What that's going to do is allow you to pull this back somewhat, and there is your AM/FM module, and in the top there is the harness you disconnect. You'll plug it into your harness, and that we ran that down, zip tied along the factory lube. We took off our kick panels here. Moving forward, we popped our B-pillar cover and just fished it through the B-pillar. In front of the B-pillar cover, ran it down, popped our kick panel off, just held on with clips. Continue running it down, ran it up, fished it through this little hole, back behind the glove box, up and over, and then into the stereo cavity. Alright, so back here in the car. Now we've set our harnesses up already on the bench for the screen itself. We have this carefully just laying in here, got everything connected. And at this point of time, what we need to do is start connecting our harnesses to the harnesses of the vehicle. Now they're all pinned differently, so you can only get them in the right position. We'll make sure we connect our USB cable. Now there may be some connections you don't use, don't worry about that. With all those, now we can connect our radio. Make sure we connect our backup camera wire, and also our steering wheel control cable. Grab our AM/FM antenna. So at this point of time, we have made all our connections. Let's turn on the vehicle. Okay, our display's on. What we had to do is go through and just select the Honda Civic. Steering wheel control configured, that's good. Okay, it all seems to be working. Radio's on. So everything seems to be working. Got our heating and air controls, that's great. Backup camera's working. Lane watch seems to be working great. At this point of time, what we can do is go ahead and get everything tucked back into the dash. With all our harnesses in and we've done everything needed, let's go ahead and tuck them down into the dash here. So we got everything all reinstalled here with the radio in. It took us a while to get the module and everything to fit back behind the radio, and then the harnesses we left out so they could plug into the back of the heating and air control display. But basically it really looks nice and clean, good factory lines. It's a nice kit. We did our passenger airbag, got that all connected. And essentially here, this kit also retains that factory USB port there down below. Backup camera, lane watch, everything's working great. And at this point of time, that is it for this install. If you have any questions on what we did here, go ahead and post a comment below. We'll link all the parts that we used in the description in case you want to pick them up for yourself. If you want to see any other installs we did on this car, we did front speakers, rear speakers, and we also have an amp and sub from another model. Be sure to hit the like button if you liked what you saw, and don't forget to subscribe. We post great content on the channel all the time, and we will see you in the next video.